Good afternoon, everybody. We'll now call to order the Salina City Commission meeting for March 24th, 2025. Just want to request from staff if the confirmation that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. And on to roll call.
Mayor Linkowitz?
Here.
Excuse me, that is the wrong order. No, it's not. Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Hoppick?
Here.
Commissioner Ivey?
Here.
Commissioner Longvine?
Here.
Okay. All those that are able, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. No public hearings scheduled, so on to the consent agenda.
Item 4.1, consider approval of the minutes of the meeting of March 10th, 2025. Item 4.2, consider approval of the minutes of the special meeting of March 12th, 2025. Item 4.3, consider approval of change order number 2 to project number 24022, Major Concrete, in the amount of $151,825.35. Item 4.4, consider awarding the bid for project number 25004, 2025 microsurfacing to Vance Brothers, Inc. of Kansas City, Missouri, in an amount not to exceed $1,160,056.10. Item 4.5, consider approval of 2 change orders to project number 20029, Phase 2 of the Project Rise Centennial and Arnold Avenue improvements, raising the total contract amount to $2,175,780.26 and extending the completion date to June 11th, 2025. And item 4.6, consider approval of resolution number 25-8285, extending the terms of certain members on citizen boards, commissions, and committees.
Thank you. Is there any commission or any item on the consent agenda any commissioner would like to have it pulled? Is there a member of the public that would like to comment on any item from the consent agenda? I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor Linkowitz, I move we approve consent agenda items as printed. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes 5-0. On to administration.
Item 5.1, consider receipt and review of the 2023 audit report from Forvis LLP.
Ms. Pack.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Debbie Pack, Director of Finance. I'm not going to make many comments because I will let Forvis do that, but I just wanted to point out that this audit document will be on the city's website tomorrow after you receive it today, and will be there for the public's review. So instead of going through the comments, I'm going to introduce Michael Gerber from Forvis that will present their review of their audit report.
Thank you, Debbie, and Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for having me here today. My name is Michael Gerber. I'm a partner with Forvis Mazars. We did complete the 2023 audits of the City of Salina. I believe you already have an electronic copy of the document, but as Debbie mentioned, it'll be available for public shortly after this meeting. This is the copy printed. It's about 133 pages. So certainly want to start by thanking your finance team here, between Debbie, Rachel. I know you've got some new additions there as well. They always do a great job getting us what we need to do our job. So thank you very much for your all's help in getting us that information. I just have a few highlights that I want to mention as it relates to the report here. First of all, you might be aware that you do have some component units, the airport and the housing authority, that get audited by other auditors. We do obtain those audit reports, and we offer our opinion based on the city. But you might be aware that one of those reports for the Housing Authority actually came back with a qualified opinion. And so as a result of that, we actually disclaim we do not offer an opinion on those units because of that qualification. But as the city is concerned, those statements, we did issue an unmodified opinion, a clean opinion. That's the opinion that you want as a result of an audit. So certainly good news in that respect. Each year, we always evaluate some of the federal awards that you receive as well. Sometimes there's years where we have to do what's called a compliance audit, make sure that money's getting spent in the right ways that the government wants to see. In 2023, you did have such an audit for some of the ARPA funding that you received. Good news is we have a clean opinion on that as well. No findings as a result of that compliance audit. So good news with regards to that area too. The last thing that I want to mention, again, I mentioned this is a pretty thick report. If there's only a few pages that you really want to pay attention to, I would encourage you to look at pages 5 through 15. That's the management discussion and analysis area. That's where you really get some good comparative figures between the years, between 2023 and 2022. So that's where I would spend most of my time if I were your group. But obviously, if you do have any questions as you go through this report, Debbie knows how to get a hold of me. I can certainly be back to answer any of those questions if you find something. Those are the main items that I wanted to speak to, but I will stand for questions or anything like that.
Any questions?
Are there any upcoming changes in the next year or two that we need to be aware of from the accounting standards?
There is. There's a new standard for how you track compensated absences. Sick leave is really what it's going to be. Good news there for the clients that I've worked through already and looked at their calculations. They're pretty much materially correct. So not a whole lot of changes that have to occur with regards to that standard, but that is something that we will be looking at for the next year. That's the only major one that we have here coming up.
Thank you.
I would commend staff that the only thing brought up as a deficiency here was lack of segregation of duties, and I imagine that's because we just don't have enough help. But
Very good point. Yes, I didn't even mention that because that's the lowest level of a deficiency that we have. There are review processes in place that we believe would capture any errors or fraud that might occur. But yes, we did include that as a written comment, just kind of an FYI type of thing, and you're exactly right. I think any city this size, it's hard to completely separate any duties from a staffing perspective. Yep.
Thank you.
I don't believe this question's for you. This will probably be for Ms. Pack, but the fact that the Housing Authority had the deficiency on their report, is that something we need to address from the city standpoint?
I don't think we have any agreements with the Housing Authority, so I don't know that would be affect what we do.
Why does that flow? Why do they analyze that, I guess is my question.
Yes. So it has to do with who controls the entity at the end of the day. And since the city does have some control over that between the Housing Authority and the Airport Authority, that's why that falls under this report. And that does their numbers get included in our report here. So I'm not sure I'm exactly answering your question.
I'm looking
but there
at
is
legal counsel. I think we're about to get an answer, hopefully. So,
well, if I may, Mayor and Commissioners, the significance of the reference to both the Housing Authority and the Airport Authority is because they are carrying out functions that the city, the governing body, historically, some years ago, in both cases, have delegated roles that the city would normally be authorized by enabling legislation to undertake, and to pass on, to delegate that authority, in the one case, the city's housing program, in the other case, the operation of the airport and the industrial area surrounding the airport. So they have been created by the city as a delegation of that authority. They operate rather independently, but as you know, you all appoint them, appoint the members of the board as well. So delegation of the authority and appointment of the boards are the elements that involve the city. And I think it would possibly warrant, if to the extent you all would wish to be further advised, it would certainly be within your discretion to do so.
but there's no specific funding from us to the Housing Authority. Is that correct? We just,
either Mr. Wood or Ms. Pack can address that better than I, but I don't believe there is.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
In the past, we were informed that there's fewer and fewer accounting firms doing municipal audits. Does your firm plan to stay engaged?
We do, yeah. We're actually the #2 firm that does single audits of the federal funds in the nation, and yeah, we don't plan on going anywhere with respect to that. That's correct.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item? I will bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move we accept the 2023 audit report from Forbes LLP.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to accept the 2023 audit report from Forbes LLP. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. On to 5.2.
Item 5.2, consider authorizing the mayor to execute a recruitment services agreement with Government Professional Solutions for executive search and hiring services for the city manager position in the amount of $21,500.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. To provide a brief recap, during your February 24th, 2025 meeting, you reviewed the proposals and narrowed collectively down to top 4 firms, and from those 4 firms, you then interviewed on March 12th at a special meeting to make a selection and asked staff who worked collectively also with legal counsel to bring back a proposal with Government Professional Solutions, also known as GPS. And that is the item that is before you for your approval. The fixed fee in the proposal did not change in their agreement. Fixed fee of $21,500 to include the expenses associated with the search. With that, staff is not prepared to make any sort of recommendation, but would be, I guess, carrying out any directives or any requests should you not want to move forward with this agreement.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Ms. Fisher on this?
Upon approval, will this kick off the process will they then submit a timeline?
That is my understanding based on the timeline that was provided, and in addition, this afternoon when I read correspondence from Mr. Lowe with GPS, not to get ahead of ourselves, but he did ask us to come up with a day or possibly days that he could meet individually with the commission, and then as well as any other activity that you would want from them in coordination with I guess, launching their search.
Yeah, I guess that kind of answered my question, what the next step was. So we will wait to hear from him.
Well, he did ask staff to at least start that, and that might, I don't know, the best approach. I'm looking to legal counsel if that would be something that would happen after the approval of the agreement, and then to come up with possibly a day or dates that would work for your calendars to move ahead.
I would think, Mayor, if you wanted to go ahead and consider the item, if the vote was in favor of entering into the agreement, I too understood that Mr. Lowe would appreciate some indication from you of your availability, and I believe he's adaptable to whatever your schedule would allow, not only for these initial conversations, but also discussions about development of that timeline that the agreement anticipates would be identified as soon as possible.
Thank you. Is that something that needs to be public record, or is that something we can take care of after the meeting?
Well, I think to the extent that would require any joint matching of calendars among commissioners, that should be public discussion. Those individual interviews, of course, can be conducted individually and privately as they develop their work plan. But if it's at all possible, I would think that maybe a joint discussion of what might work would be helpful.
Something we could discuss in other business?
Oh, certainly. I think it
After
would
we-
be fine whenever you wish.
Just to clarify, his first step is to meet with us as a group or individually?
Individually.
Because I would think the easiest thing at that point would be to have the city manager's administrator, as she does for other meetings that we need set up like that, just have Holly just contact us and set it up. Because we wouldn't have to agree on, it'd probably be easier for him if it's the same day, obviously. But Holly's been quite proficient in arranging that.
Were they going to look at being on site or online?
My impression of the request for the initial meetings would be on site, so he could meet in person individually with each of you.
So that makes a difference.
Certainly does. Any more feedback on this, or?
I think Commissioner Davis's suggestion is certainly
Well,
fine if that's your wish. And in fact, Ms. Fisher may wish to comment about this as well. And one of the other questions that was asked was to confirm who you wish to be the primary contact person. That could be the mayor, it could be any one of you, it could continue to be Ms. Fisher as she has worked with got the process to this point, but it is in your discretion as to whom that contact person would be also.
Understood. Thank you. Well, my thought was I was leaning towards the direction Commissioner Davis had mentioned. What are your thoughts on Ms. Fisher being the point of contact?
I think we should approve this first. I mean, we're talking about it, maybe. I mean, we need to approve.
Yeah, you're right.
We need
You're
to
right.
approve this, and then we can
All right,
talk in
let's-
actualities and not.
So
maybes.
we're ready to, any member of the public like to comment on this item?
Okay.
I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor Linkwitz, I move we we authorize the city manager to execute a recruitment services agreement with Government Professional Solutions in the amount of $21,500, including an initial payment of $12,500 payable upon execution of the agreement.
One correction, it'd be the mayor signing it, not the city manager. No, it says
Yes.
city
Yeah,
mayor,
yeah.
but it said
I'll make that.
City manager.
I'll make that modification.
The city manager's got to sign to spend the money though, right?
well, the blue, the white.
Yeah, it does, the actual document does say, okay, I amend that to read
Yeah.
executed by the mayor.
Okay, we have a second on that? Second. Okay, motion and a second. Authorize the mayor to execute a recruitment service agreement with Government Professional Solutions for executive search and hiring services in connection with the city manager position in the amount of $21,500, including an initial payment of $12,500 payable upon execution of the agreement with amendments as the city commission deems. No, hold on. No, just on the initial payment of $12,500 payable upon execution of the agreement. And ends there. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. On to development business.
I think we can finalize this if we now talk about how we wanted to do this. I do believe that I agree with Commissioner Davis that we should allow Holly to send out a calendar request to all of us, see if we can synchronize a day when the gentleman, one of them comes to town, we'll be able to meet with him. And correct me if I'm wrong here, again, Commissioner Davis, but last time we did this, I believe we did have Natalie as our point person. Again, she's in the office every day. She would funnel that information to us and back and forth, I think. And that keeps us from having any kind of serial meeting here if it goes to the mayor.
I concur. And it's a good idea.
I agree.
Good point.
So, do we need a motion on that, or is it
If that
just
was a
staff
motion,
direction?
I'll second it.
I don't think we need a motion. I think we just need to give Ms. Fisher direction and Holly.
Someone give Holly the memo.
Yeah, I think as long as that is your consensus, that will work. If I may also, I apologize for that error in the blue sheet. We managed to get the mayor referred to on the agreement,
Yes.
but in assisting Natalie, that oversight was mine, and I apologize for that.
It's not a problem, but thank you. And on to development business, 6.1.
Item 6.1, consider approval of ordinance number 25-11238, correcting and repealing section 2 of ordinance number 24-11192, which amends the future land use map of the city of Salina.
Mr. Andrew.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. It's never fun or pleasant doing a corrective ordinance, but in preparing for materials for this evening's other related items, we look back to action taken by the City Commission on the January 10th, 2024, and you acted on a future land use map amendment application been filed by Salina Destination Development, and they requested that property that was located on the west side of Virginia Drive, south of West Magnolia, be redesignated as future urban residential in support of their plans for developing multifamily housing in the area. And an ordinance was passed that amended the land use map, but in preparing materials in preparation for these subsequent items, we found that there was a typographical error in that ordinance, and it was in the operable part of the ordinance, and as a substantive error, it needed to be corrected through a repeal and replacement ordinance. So the attached ordinance corrects and repeals the language in section 2 of that ordinance to make clear that the change in the map is to urban residential, which was your original intent, and not employment, which somehow worked its way into the ordinance. So your options on this item this afternoon would be to approve the ordinance correcting and repealing section 2, which misstated the future land use classification of the property. You could postpone consideration of this revised corrected ordinance to a future meeting date to allow staff or the property owner to provide additional information, or you could decline to approve the corrective ordinance, which would leave the property shown as future employment instead of the intended urban residential on the map. And so attached is a map that shows that the land use designation got changed on the map, but it didn't get correctly changed in the ordinance. So with that, I'd be open to any questions commissioners might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Andrew? Okay. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item? And I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 2511238, correcting and repealing section 2 of ordinance number 24-11192, which misstated the future land use map clarification of a tract of land between West Dry Creek and Virginia Drive, south of West Magnolia Road.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Approval of ordinance number 25-11238, correcting and repealing section 2 of ordinance number 24-11192, which misstated the future land use map classification of a tract of land located between West Dry Creek and Virginia Drive, south of West Magnolia Road. All those in, actually roll call vote on this one.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ivy,
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine,
Aye.
Mayor Linkowitz.
Aye. Passes on to 6.2.
Item 6.2, consider authorizing the mayor to sign the final plat of Dry Creek Addition Number 2, Phase 2 of the Salina Destination Development Project.
Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We're out in the same location, south of West Magnolia Road and west of Menards, and we're looking at a plat of the Phase 2 area for area that's owned by Salina Destination Development, LLC. And so you have some fairly thick packets with lots of attachments that we sent out to you, and I'm going to use the assistance of Mr. Hers to help me tell the story graphically, but this is an application to final plat a piece of property, and in 2023 Salina Destination came forward and filed applications to annex and rezone and plat an 11.2 portion of this property for the purpose of constructing 252 apartment units. And this was phase 1 of what is known as Magnolia Village Housing Project. Those apartments are under construction. And now this is coming back, and this final plat covers 29.2 acres to the west and south of that. And if we look at it from north to south, there are 3 lots that are proposed. Lot 3, highlighted in yellow there, is proposed as a commercial lot along Magnolia Road and has about 1.4 acres. Lot 2, or excuse me, I guess we're going from left to right. So Lot 1 is at the left-hand side by Magnolia Road, and then the center piece highlighted there in green is Lot 2. That's 22.23 acres, and it's set aside for construction of 152 horizontal apartments. And then on the right-hand side at the far south end is Lot 3, and it is set aside for the construction of 3 multi-level apartment buildings. And so the proposed access into the apartment portion of this would be a looped private access drive, which you can kind of see there connecting from Magnolia Road and then going through the development and then looping back to Virginia Drive. The plan is for this to be a gated access, and the road would be private, not a public street. And then as part of this project, Virginia Drive would be extended south. And so these are the elements of that plat. We also have some drawings that show the right-of-way and easement dedications. And so we're looking at creating a number of private and public streets. So the yellow you see highlighted is right-of-way that would be dedicated for Virginia Drive. That is going to be dedicated by the property owner to the east, who owns the property directly south of Menards. The red area is right-of-way being dedicated on this plat for Virginia Drive. And then at the south end, there is right-of-way for an east-west street that would connect to the property to the east. And so those are the major right-of-way dedications that you would be looking at here. And then I think we also have a drawing, Dustin, that highlights the easements that we would be dedicating. So within the confines of the subdivision, the areas that are highlighted there are going to be public utility easements for water and sewer that would be publicly owned and maintained. And then the blue areas there are public drainage easements that would be dedicated for stormwater detention ponds. So in terms of your action this evening, in terms of accepting dedications, those would be the dedications that would be accepted. And so the portions that were highlighted in yellow that would come from neighboring property owners, those would be dedicated separately outside the plat. So in terms of street improvements or extensions, We have the cul-de-sac that exists on Virginia Drive. That would be removed, and Virginia Drive would be extended to the south end of the subdivision. And that would look like that. Then there's Shenandoah Drive, which would be an east-west street that would extend back eventually across West Dry Creek into the west to connect with Aeroplanes. And then the city of Salina has received funds from KDOT to go towards making improvements to Magnolia Road, abutting the subdivision. And so that'll transform Magnolia from a rural section with roadside ditches to a complete street that would have curb and gutter, sidewalk on the north side, and a hike bike path on the south side. So the water and sanitary sewer layouts have been reviewed and approved by the Director of Utilities and the Fire Marshal, and both of those internal systems will be primarily public. There is electric and natural gas in the area, but the developers have indicated that the horizontal apartments will be all electric. And so for street names, we have Virginia Drive extended, the east-west street is Shenandoah Drive, and then Avery Lane is the name of the private street that will serve the horizontal apartments. One thing we did want to call attention to, I think we have a list of off-site dedications, Dustin. List of off-site dedications, just a page that lists those off. And if not, okay, if not, we'll go to the conceptual hammerhead design. So these are rather small, but we have neighboring property owners are involved, and so we showed you on the map that there is a need for dedication of right-of-way from GZH LLC for the other portion of Virginia Drive, and they have provided a firm written commitment to dedicate that right-of-way. We have had meetings with the Kerr family about a piece of property that's actually only 20 feet by 50 feet in diameter, but they are, it's located in the tree buffer that shelters their property. So we are going out and flagging that in the field and having additional discussions with them. We also had discussions with them about a design concept to create a temporary hammerhead at the south terminus of Virginia Drive. And so we provided that information to the CARES, and they reviewed that and were not supportive of the hammerhead idea and would like to see it shifted to the north. And then the other piece that's off-site is once we get to Dry Creek and we get on the other side of the creek, we would have to work with One Vision to get the right-of-way for the connecting street dedicated. So if you could go to the drawings, Dustin, that show the hammerhead design and the alternatives. So this is the original concept, and again, this is a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, which is why we use the color coded segments, but the yellow is right-of-way for Virginia Drive dedicated by GZH. The red is right-of-way for Virginia Drive dedicated this plat. The red is the right-of-way for the east-west street. The blue is the small piece of right-of-way that would need to be dedicated by the CARES to make the two streets fit together. And then at the top of the picture is where, on a temporary basis, a turnaround for emergency vehicles was proposed, and that's kind of in the tree buffer line there. So I think we have alternative drawings in there, Dustin. So we put forward an idea. This was one idea, which was to pick up the cul-de-sac that's the end of Virginia Drive and move it here, and that substantially interfered with the access and parking for the south apartments. So then we came up with an alternative that takes it to the other side of the street exclusively. And so it puts all of the turnaround radius on the GZH property. And we shared that vision with the Care family, and they were more supportive of this idea for a temporary turnaround at the end of Virginia Drive until Shenandoah Drive gets built. And so that would shift the terminus of the road farther north and keep it out of the tree line. Just wanted to highlight a few things about who's responsible for what. So in terms of public improvements, the developers would be responsible for extending Virginia Drive from its current terminus to the south end of the subdivision. They would be responsible for a portion of the cost of constructing the east-west street to city standards. They would be responsible for building a sidewalk on the east side of Virginia Drive. They would be responsible for design, construction, and financing of public water mains, fire hydrants, and sewer lines, and for constructing their stormwater collection system. The city would be responsible for upgrades to Magnolia Road, and we would have a share in the cost of constructing the east-west street to city standards until those costs could be recovered. It's a related item on tonight's agenda, but the developers have requested that they be allowed to use special assessment financing for those items that I identified. And so the Planning Commission met first on February 4th to review this. There were a lot of moving parts and things that hadn't quite been nailed down, and so they postponed consideration to their March 4th meeting. All of the items got satisfactorily addressed, and they voted 7-0 to approve this proposed final plat, subject to a number of conditions that are highlighted on page 11 of your report. And so this evening, if you concur with their action, you should make a motion to accept the offered right-of-way, utility, and drainage easement dedications on behalf of the city and authorize the mayor to sign the plat. In the alternative, you could approve a motion to decline to accept the offered dedications and return this plat to the Planning Commission, stating your reasons for not wishing to accept those dedications. So just to clarify, again, the portions that are off-site, not controlled by Salina Destination, will come to you separately to be accepted as dedications.
Going back to the one where we showed the turnaround instead of doing the Hammerhead, has GZH signed off on this?
It has been sent to them and mentioned with them, but I don't have anything back from them that specifically accepts it.
So if they do not agree to this, what's our alternative?
There is another alternative that would involve a slightly different design. There's a concept under the fire code. The concept for the very south Hammerhead is you would use the right-of-way for Shenandoah Drive and the east Hammerhead and have a true T Hammerhead. There is an option for a single Hammerhead, and if the circle cul-de-sac did not work, we would try to keep a Hammerhead entirely on the east side on their side of the line and shift it north.
We're approving the plat, but this is outside of the plat.
This is outside the plat.
This or the Hammerhead or whatever will be addressed at a later date.
It will be addressed at a later time in a final configuration. So just to clarify, the development agreement that was entered into makes the city responsible for obtaining anything that's outside the plat. So it's the city's responsibility to discuss and negotiate with those owners, and Salina Destination is not ultimately responsible for that. So.
That was my question. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions for Mr. Andrew?
We do have Dustin Marsh here from representing Salina Destination. If you have any questions about the plat for him, we'll cover the plan for the housing in the next item, but this is just the plat portion.
All right. Thank you very much. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item? And I will bring it back to the commission.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was,
Mayor, I move we accept the offered right-of-way utility drainage and easement dedications on the Dry Creek Addition Number 2 plat and authorize the mayor to sign the plat on behalf of the city.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve a motion to accept the offered right-of-way utility and drainage easement dedications on Dry Creek Addition Number 2 plat, and to authorize the mayor to sign the plat on behalf of the city. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. On to 6.3.
6.3, consider approval of ordinance number 25-11240, rezoning a 1.39 acre tract of land on the south side of West Magnolia Road, west of Virginia Drive, from A1 agricultural to PDD R2.5 Planned Development District residential.
The third time, Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is the zoning and land use piece associated with the plat that we just discussed. So this looks what the underlying zoning and development regulations should be relating to this proposed housing project, but there are two components to the rezoning request. As I noted, Salina Destination's interested in developing the portion along Magnolia Road for commercial purposes. So they have requested C5 zoning, service commercial, for a 1.39 acre tract of land that's directly west of American Ag Credit. They do not have an identified user or tenant for the property at this time, but it's their wish to create a lot and get the zoning established at this time. In addition to that, they filed application PDD 25-1, and in that portion of the application, they're asking to change the zoning district classification from agricultural to multifamily residential. And so their request before you this evening is the zoning change, and also the preliminary development plan, which we will show you is part of the action tied back to the zoning of the property. So Dustin, if you want to go to that color-coded preliminary development plan. We've decided to color code these plans because they're a lot easier to see if we have color renderings. And if you look over on the left-hand side, you'll see all the different housing types by color and shape. And so in this middle portion, they're proposing to construct 152 horizontal apartment units, and they're proposing to construct 3 multi-story apartment buildings that would contain 98 units at the south end. And the majority of internal utilities will be public, water and sewer. The internal access drive will be privately owned and maintained, and there will be controlled gated access at the entries into the horizontal apartments. So we kind of highlighted on page 3 of your report, there are 152 individual living units. There's 139 individual buildings that are color-coded there in the horizontal apartments. 13 of those are duplex units. 126 of those are individual 1, 2, and 3 bedroom single-family units. There are 56 one-story horizontal apartments. 26 of those are what is being described as micro mansions, which essentially means that they're built in a factory instead of on site. And 61 are 2-story dwellings. And then in addition to that, they're proposing 9 one-bedroom garages over, or apartments over ground floor garages. So that's where we get to the total of 152. They are proposing an internal sidewalk network, an extensive site landscaping, a community mailroom, a dog run, and a walking trail along West Dry Creek as part of the features in Phase 2. And the residents of Phase 2 will have access to the clubhouse, swimming pool, barbecue area, and sport court that's in the Phase 1 area. And then as to the multi-story, those will all be apartments. They will not have rear balconies or decks, and they will have a community mail room just for the South 3 apartments. And so this is a two-step process. We're on step 1 tonight, and that's establishing the zoning and the preliminary development for the project. If you were to approve that this evening, then their next step would be come back to the Planning Commission with a detailed final plan that would get more into details of landscaping, fencing, lighting, things of that nature. And so I think we've walked you through most of the details as it relates to this. I think we have a drawing that shows apartment project densities, Dustin. So just to get a feel for this, what we did in this table was we just compared the density, how many units per acre in the different portions. And so while there's 152 units, there are the actual, because of the open space, the actual density for the horizontal apartments would be just under 7 units per acre. And then for the multi-story part would be around 20 units per acre. And so that would be comparable to what we have in some other apartments. Just for your feel, the density in Phase 1 was 22 units an acre. The Phase 2 plan for the multi-story is slightly below that. And if you are familiar with the Chapel apartments east of the mall, those are in that same area of around 20 units per acre. And so we have reserves at Prairie Glen. And so you can see what some of those densities are. And then I would like to summarize 4 variations that or modifications that we identified as part of the planned development district. And so I think we have a graphic that shows those, Dustin. So in reviewing this, just so you're aware of what is in the plan, the horizontal apartments, they're proposing to have a minimum separation of 10 feet between the individual apartment buildings. And while that is less than what zoning requires, it is consistent with what the International Residential Code allows for without fire rating exterior walls. They are requesting a slight reduction in the required parking for the horizontal apartments, a net reduction of 4. And then they are requesting that the units be allowed to have a 0 setback from the private drive. And then the private drive is, or private street, varies from what you would see on a typical street in that they are using that as basically the center with head-in parking stalls right adjacent to the roadway. So instead of having a roadway that's clear on either side, they're proposing to have their parking stalls for units back directly into that drive. And that allows them to have units stacked behind units and use sidewalks to access that. So if you look at the plan, you'll see a couple locations where you have the private drive parking, and then there's units tucked behind other units that are reached by sidewalk. And then a final piece I think we want to show you is the proposed gated entrances. So coming from the north from Magnolia, there is a access road coming in from Magnolia. If you've decided you've made a mistake, you can turn around and go right back out. The red lines indicate that we've looked at this for fire apparatus and delivery vehicles, and the width and radiuses are wide enough to accommodate our fire apparatus. And I think our next one is a 3D view. So if you're coming from the north off of Magnolia Road, then this is the entryway into the horizontal apartments, and that shows it with the gates open, and you can see the turnaround there if somebody decides that they didn't mean to enter that location. So there's a further aerial view with Magnolia Road being on the right and the entrance, north entrance in the left, and then the mail room is up there where you just to the north of that area. And then down at the south end, what is labeled as Avery Lane will go through the development, have a connection back to Virginia Drive, and there'd be a second set of gates there opposite Virginia Drive. So the circulation would be a looped system where you could enter or exit either Virginia Drive or Magnolia Road. So I think that that covers the main things that we wanted to highlight from a graphic standpoint. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this request on February 4th and again on March 4th. We have copies of the minutes from those meetings attached, and you can see the comments and questions that were made. At the close of the hearing on March 4th, the Planning Commission made two recommendations. One was they approved a motion to recommend the commercial lot be merged into the Planned Development District and be rezoned to Planned Development District C5, with the development plan being deferred until a use was proposed. Then they made a second motion to approve a zoning change for lots 2 and 3 of the apartment lots to be zoned PDD R2.5, and they included the 4 modifications requested by the applicant. So the ordinance that is attached to your packet is based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission and their conditions. And if I refer you back to page 18 of the staff report, that has your alternatives as it relates to zoning. So you could concur with the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission and approve Ordinance 25-11-240, including the 4 requested modifications, and that would require 3 affirmative votes. You could disagree with the recommendation of the Planning Commission and say you'd like to send it back, and you can give your reasons for wanting to have them look at it again. You could postpone action this evening to a future meeting date and direct staff or the applicant and what additional information you'd like to have provided. Or you could overturn the recommendation of the Planning Commission and deny the 2 rezoning requests. That would require 4 votes since it is contrary to the recommendation of the Planning Commission. As to the plan that we showed you, it is linked to the ordinance, and so we often refer to planned development districts as what you see is what you get zoning. So the expectation is what was presented this evening is what will get done. And so you could approve that plan as proposed, or if there are revisions you'd like to see made to the plan drawing itself, you could point those things out as part of any action you take. As I noted, if you approve this evening, then the developers would come back with a more detailed final development plan before they obtained a building permit. But with that, I'm open to any questions you have about the zoning piece.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ander?
If there's any graphics you'd like to see again, just let us know.
Thank you.
Again, we do have Dustin Marsh here with Salina Destination if you have any questions of the developer.
We have any questions for the developer?
Yeah, I did have a couple questions for Mr. Marsh.
Okay.
Dustin Marsh with Salina Destinations.
This is pretty extensive. Seems a lot more complex than building the vertical apartments.
Yes.
Do you have a timeline when to begin this phase?
Well, we've got some schedules with special assessments and certain other things that I'm sure Dean will get into, but breaking ground just as soon as this spring as we could on phase 2 is our hope to kind of get mass grading, earthwork, infrastructure going. So that's kind of our near term in terms of phase 2. Phase 1, they're all hands on deck out there, but first things first, just getting our zoning right and making sure that the plan was right. Working with the utilities on phase 2 was a critical piece that has taken us a little bit longer to kind of get going. So hopefully we can make up some of that time here with our infrastructure project here this spring and summer.
So it's going to get started just right along in conjunction with phase 1.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
You won't see much of a difference out there, I don't think, between, there won't be a wall, a wall separating the work. It's going to be all hands on deck, and our contractor will be the same on phase 1 and phase 2. So there'll be
general contractor.
JACO, correct? Yeah. So, just working through the logistics of how we efficiencies where we can is what we're looking at on that front right now.
Okay, and Mr. Andrews said there's going to be a certain section of manufactured housing. What kind of product
the micro
is it?
mansions are a product. It's the unit is called the BERT, and we provided information about it in our zoning. But they're built as kits off-site and delivered and then constructed on-site as a set of parts. And so we've got other examples of that product that have been built. We've made some modifications to kind of try to make this rendition special to Salina with some tweaks to the floor plan and offering kind of 2 different sides of that unit type. We also thought that could help us with the schedule and efficiencies, just to try to get some of those things, constructed off-site and delivered on-site might help us to gain some time. So that was some of the thought there.
What's the name of the company again?
Micro Mansions is the name of the company, and the unit, they have a kind of a broad spectrum of tastes and floor plans, but the BERT unit is the one that we have selected for this project. And like I said, we've got two different renditions of the BERT for our tenants, and as part of this kind of robust unit package with these horizontal apartments.
That'll be quite a variety of options.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
Norman Landell, Salina. Have you talked to the military about air restrictions around this airport? We're having problems down at Fort Riley right now, invasion of airspace. So military will take priority over civilian airspace. Look what we had back east. You're going to have plane wrecks. Military training takes priority over civilian airplane. It's national security.
Anyone else?
I would just note that there is FAA regulation of airspace around the Salina Airport, and we've looked at the height and location of these buildings, and they do not penetrate into any approach zones for the municipal airports.
Thank you. I will bring it back to the commission.
Mayor Linkwitz, concurring with the Planning and Commission, I move we approve ordinance number 25-11240, rezoning this property to PDD C5 and PDDR 2.5, including the 4 requested PDD modifications.
Second.
I was under the impression that was going to go from A1 to... Do I have that wrong?
Yeah, that's the,
Is it?
From,
this is concurring with the Planning Commission's
Planning
Commission.
recommendations.
Let me get to that part then.
Page 18.
So on page,
Yeah, I'm there.
page 15, the recommendation of the Planning Commission was that for Lot 1 to be rezoned from A1 agricultural to PDD C5, and for the south two lots to be rezoned from A1 agricultural to PDD R2.5. So I do believe that Mr. Hoppick's motion was accurate reflection of the recommendation.
All right.
Go to page 18.
Get there. All right, we have a motion and a second to concur with the findings and the recommendations of the Planning Commission and pass ordinance number 25-11240, rezoning the property to DDD C5 and PDD R2.5, including the 4 requested PDD modifications should be approved. And that should do it. All those, oh, we need actually a roll call.
Commissioner Davis?
aye.
Commissioner Hoppick?
Aye.
Commissioner Ivy?
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine?
Aye.
Mayor Lankowitz?
Aye. All right, on to 6.4.
Item 6.4, consider authorizing staff to prepare a special assessment engineering feasibility study for Dry Creek Addition Number 2, Phase 2 of the Salina Destination Development Project.
Hi.
Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. So same parcel of land that we're looking at from Mr. Andrew for the last 3 items, following along with Salina Destination's request for special assessment financing. So the City Commission met on October 28th, 2024 and approved entering into a development agreement with Salina Destination Development, LLC, for Phase 2 of the project. Included in Section 5.13, Virginia Drive improvements and water and sewer improvements, was information regarding the establishment of 2 special benefit districts to finance the cost of public improvements required to be constructed for Phase 2 of the project. So Salina Destination is today seeking the City Commission's approval to utilize special assessment financing to finance construction of 2 public infrastructure improvements. One of those is the installation of internal public utilities, and the second one is the extension of Virginia Drive to the south. In recent years, the City Commission has authorized the use of special assessment financing for other owner-occupied properties and commercial projects, but there have been no comparable recent projects like this to this caliber for special assessment financing. So we will go through all of the 12 review factors for special assessment financing for step 1 of the process. So first, the capital cost of the proposed improvements to be financed with special assessments, along with the estimated life cycle maintenance costs for the improvements, both internal and external to the subdivision, utilizing an estimated life of 30 years for street improvements and 50 years for utility improvements. The proposed improvements would add approximately 1,034 lineal feet of roadway, 3,068 lineal feet of public water lines, and 1,732 lineal feet of public sanitary lines that the city would maintain in perpetuity after construction. The estimated useful life of the new pipe installed as part of this project would be 60 years minimum, and there will be minimal costs associated with the pipelines within the subdivision after construction. Water and wastewater rates are set to cover costs for plant operations and ongoing system maintenance. Review factor 2, the extent to which the proposed project requires or anticipates expenditures for additional public improvements, particularly off-site improvements, that are not to be assessed against the improvement district itself, and the extent to which the city or third parties have committed to funding such additional public improvements. Staff has determined that there are no expenditures for additional public improvements outside the boundaries of the Dry Creek Addition plat that are required to allow Phase 2 to be developed, and that would be part of this benefit district. Review factor 3, the number and estimated market prices of the proposed as-developed lots within the subdivision as projected by the petitioner, Salina Destination LLC, compared with the city's estimated current inventory of existing and available housing supply within the most applicable of the following price ranges. This development is a unique situation where lot prices are not as particular, as this will be renter-occupied and not owner-occupied. The developer and property owner will be responsible for the cost of any special assessments. Review factor 4, the projected rate at which houses within the subdivision will be purchased or leased based on projected sales, lease rates, and comparable real estate market information. As I said, the development will be built for rental units only. No single-family lots will be for sale as part of the development. All units in the Phase 2 project must be offered for occupancy by residential tenants no later than December 15th, 2026, as per the Phase 2 development agreement that you guys approved back in October. Review factor 5. For new or innovative housing products, the degree to which a petitioner can demonstrate acceptance of the products into the Salina market. The developer of the Dry Creek Addition number 2 is proposing to use horizontal apartments, a new type of housing product for the Salina market. The developer states that horizontal apartments and build-for-rent communities are becoming more popular across the country. Listed benefits of this development style include more space and privacy, low-maintenance living, amenities and community feel, flexibility and affordability, appealing to various demographics, and better noise reduction. Review factor 6. The ratio of the estimated average total special assessments against each lot in the subdivision to the estimated average market price of the proposed as-developed lots within the subdivision. As this development will not have single-family lots for sale, the average market price of the proposed as-developed lots within the subdivision is not applicable to this project. Review factor 7. The estimated average total special assessments against each lot in the improvement district as compared with the prior 5-year average total special assessments against all subdivision lots in established improvement districts within the city. The 5-year average is difficult to calculate because this development is incomparable to others that we've done special assessment financing for in the past. It's in a unique situation where the lot prices and special assessments are not relevant to the rates of renting a unit. They'll all be paid for by the developer themselves. Review factor 8, the total special assessment burden against a property if subject to multiple improvement districts. Phase 1 of Dry Creek Addition did not utilize special assessment financing for their public improvements. They were assessed benefit fees for water, sewer, and Virginia Drive as part of their Phase 1 and paid a total of $351,998 before any building permits were issued for Phase 1. Review factor 9. The proposed subdivision shall be reviewed to determine the extent to which property factors related to ownership, dimension, elevation, development costs, physical characteristics, contamination, legal disputes, or other conditions could reasonably be considered to inhibit the potential for physical development on platted lots subject to special assessments. Staff has not identified any dimensional issues or topographical conditions or physical barriers that would prevent any of the proposed lots in the Dry Creek Addition number 2 from being developed. Staff sees no foreseeable difficulties that would prevent a building permit from being issued on any of the lots in the proposed benefit district. Review factor 10. The proposed subdivision shall be reviewed for conformance with the following connectivity goals contained in the comprehensive plan: roadway, transit, bicycle, and pedestrian. Dry Creek Addition number 2 will have connectivity to the east to Virginia Drive and to the north to Magnolia Road. Magnolia Road is shown as an arterial street and a possible future complete street in the comprehensive plan. Virginia Drive is classified as a collector street. There is a master street plan that calls for Virginia Drive to be extended south to connect to Virginia Drive in the Hollybrook Addition and ultimately to Schilling Road. There is also a plan in place for a future street connection to the northeast corner of the Aeroplane subdivision. Magnolia Road does not meet city street standards currently, but a project to upgrade Magnolia Road to city standards from I-135 to West Dry Creek has received KDOT funding and is also in the city's 2025 capital improvement program. Review factor 11. The proposed subdivision shall be reviewed for conformance with the following goals and policy of the housing study. Price points. Staff believes that the proposed subdivision conforms. contiguity. Staff believes that the proposed subdivision conforms. Density, form, and innovation. As noted above, the developer is proposing to use horizontal apartments, which is a newer type of housing product. The city's future land use plan shows this area as being appropriate for commercial development and for a primary service area for the extension of city utilities and services. D, reinvestment. The extent to which the proposed improvement district provides strong positive incentive. Staff has determined the reinvestment is not applicable to this project. And review factor 12, any other requirements or considerations which we have not identified. Debt and financial management considerations. It is the city's policy to maintain an appropriate level of indebtedness to preserve flexibility for future infrastructure investments while balancing the potential impact on the city's overall credit rating. City staff, in consultation with its financial advisor, will evaluate the costs, benefits, risks, and other considerations regarding each proposed improvement district and should so advise the governing body as part of the review process for each improvement district petition. I met with the finance department, and they gave me the current debt limit of 39%. Issuance of bonds for phase 2 would increase or may increase that by 2%. I have our standard special assessment fiscal note here that special assessment financing involves issuance of municipal bonds to finance the construction of eligible infrastructure items such as water, sewer, storm sewer, and streets, with assessments being levied upon the benefiting properties such that the principal, interest, bond issuance costs, and an administrative fee are covered through the special assessments. If a special assessment district is approved, the developer must either put up 20% of the estimated project costs in cash or submit a letter of credit for 35% of the estimated project as financial security. In the event of a property owner default, a lien may be placed upon the property that can result in foreclosure proceedings, with the proceeds of a foreclosure action being distributed proportionally to the various taxing entities that may have a lien against the property. So your action today, we have identified the following options for your consideration. To 1, authorize staff to prepare 2 engineering feasibility reports and 2 resolutions of advisability for Dry Creek Addition number 2 public infrastructure construction. 2, postpone consideration of this item and provide additional direction to staff and or the applicant regarding additional information that's needed. Or 3, vote to not proceed with preparation of engineering feasibility reports at this time. The use of special assessment financing is discretionary to you as a city commission. And as Mr. Marsh has already stood up before, you do have him here in the audience if you have any questions about from the applicant himself.
All right, thank you, Ms. Clem. Well done. Any questions? Thank you. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
Now, Salina, public drainage easement. Are we diverting this water? This kind of brings up the old issue of the old river drainage. Are we going to be draining chemicals, harmful stuff into another area? Now we're getting into the Kansas Water Board. This water will end up in the river, which will end up downstream. They don't want our dirty water. So you might want to look at that, because we're having problems at other lakes in the state. I go to Fish and Game Department meetings. You're diverting chemicals in there.
Any other member of the public wish to comment on this item? And I will bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move that we authorize staff to prepare 2 engineering feasibility reports and 2 resolutions of advisability for Dry Creek Addition number 2 public infrastructure construction for future consideration by the City Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize staff to prepare 2 engineering feasibility reports and 2 resolutions of advisability for Dry Creek Addition number 2 public infrastructure construction for future consideration by the City Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. On to 6.5.
Item 6.5, consider acceptance of an offered public drainage easement from the Salina Health Education Foundation on Lot 1, Block 1 of the ADR Addition.
Back for one more item. As Commission may or may not know, One Gas has entered into an agreement with Salina Health Education Foundation to swap properties. The One Gas agreed to swap the property they own at 1001 Edison Place to Salina Health Education Foundation if the Education Foundation could find them a new location for their operations facility, and they did that in the form of the former Harley-Davidson dealership on North Ohio. And to carry that out, Salina Health Education Foundation got that property replatted and rezoned in 2023 to allow for that. But when the plat was done, there had not been a completed drainage analysis, and the plat did not show a location or size for a stormwater detention basin. That has now been sized and built and located. And so this action this evening would be for the City Commission to consider accepting a public drainage easement dedication on behalf of the city for that detention pond. And so because the Health Education Foundation still owns the property, they haven't exchanged it yet, they would be the party dedicating the easement and entering into the maintenance agreement, but it will be recorded and run with the land so that it will ultimately be One Gas that's responsible for maintaining the detention basin. But in regards to this evening's action, option one would be to accept the offered public drainage easement dedication on behalf of the city. Option two would be to postpone consideration of this proposed dedication to a future meeting date if you feel like you need additional information. Or option three, you could decline to accept the drainage easement and leave the plat unchanged. This would result in the pond being located, not being located in a public drainage easement and not being subject to a maintenance obligation. So with that, I'd be open to any questions that you have. Normally this gets taken care of on a plat, but at the time of platting, it was just, we didn't have sufficient information to do it as part of the plat. So.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Andrew?
Is One Gas currently occupying the building now?
They are currently occupying the building, but they have not taken ownership yet. And it's our understanding they won't until after April 15th. And so based where we were timeline, and they have a temporary certificate of occupancy, but this needs to be taken care of for them to get a final certificate. So we moved ahead to get this done by the current owner, and then it will run with the land and be recorded.
Any member of the public wish to comment on this item? I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move we accept the offered public drainage easement dedication on behalf of the city.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the offered public drainage easement from Salina Regional Health Education Foundation on Lot 1, Block 1 of the ADR Addition. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0 on to 6.6.
Before we get to 6.6, turn that off. Before we get to 6.6, I'm going to recuse myself due to a conflict with Southview Estates LLC.
All right, thank you.
Item 6.6, consider approval of resolution number 25-8287, amending the Southview Estates LLC development agreement.
Ms. Clem.
Hello again, Mayor and Commissioners. The City of Salina's rising need for housing has been well documented, so I'm not going to read all of that for you today. The Salina City Commission continues to use your adopted housing incentives policy for their decision making. Today we're here to talk about Southview Estates, as well known as the Ryan Addition, at the corner of South Ohio Street on the east side and East Schilling Road on the south side. They are a 2021 recipient of the Moderate Income Housing Grant of $400,000, and then an additional sum of $208,000 was granted to Southview Estates during the 2022 award season. The developer is in compliance with that MIH grant. They are in a quarterly report process where we report on the houses sold and any progress they've made on a quarterly basis. They also have an approved 100% 25-year RHID that was approved in 2021 with eligible expenses approved up to $6,840,687. There was an amendment to the RHID development agreement in 2023. That amendment increased the duration of project timelines, as well as open sales of Phase 1 townhome units to investors. The new completion date for the project was set for February 14th, 2026 with that amendment. In 2023, they were awarded Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credits at a total amount of $360,000, and that was executed in November of 2023. To date, 51 units have been sold in the Southview Estates development. Of those, 9 have been sold to MIH-eligible homeowners. They are required to sell to 15 additional MIH-eligible homeowners throughout the remaining 21 lots in Phases 1 and 2. The 33 units in Phase 3 are not a part of the MIH grant and can be sold to any property owner. So the current request today, on February 24th, staff received a letter from Southview Estates LLC requesting an amendment to their RHID development agreement. The RHID development agreement is exclusive to the management of the RHID district. Other agreements such as grants like MIH are administered through their own respective regulatory documents. The amendment request letter provided by the developer cites the housing markets as the reason for needing an amendment. The strategy for Southview is to continue to construct at a level the market indicates. So as an example, a unit may be in the dry, so framed with windows, doors, roof, etc., but the interior work will be completed based on the sales occurring in the development. Southview believes all units will be completed and sold during the second or third quarter of 2026. However, they are asking for a new deadline of December 31st, 2026, allowing for market flexibility. Therefore, the request is to update Exhibit F of the development agreement, project milestones, with a new completion date. Project milestones in Exhibit F contains due dates that identify significant project milestones, including the project's end date, and critical dates at which certain product must be available for sale. To date, they've met the first 3 RHID development agreement milestones. We're just worried about the 4th one right now, which is the completion of at least 42 single-family homes and 66 townhomes, units for sale, as well as all of their internal infrastructure improvements being completed. So on the 3rd page of the staff report, you'll see 2 tables. One is their approved existing agreement. The second is their amendment request. We're only looking at that 4th line, changing it from 48 months to December 31st, 2026. What that amounts to is 10 months and some change, adding on to their timeline. Fiscal note, no additional financial obligation beyond the RHID financial impact has been identified as part of this request. Neither support nor denial of the proposed amendments represents a notable impact on staff's time. So action today, you do have resolution number 258287 before you. You can either approve the resolution as written, 2, approve the resolution with any amendments and/or further direction, 3, postpone consideration of the resolution to a specified date and time and provide staff direction regarding additional information or amendments that you see fit, or 4, vote to deny resolution and provide additional direction to staff regarding how the City Commission would like to proceed. I do have further information on the impact the City Commission does not approve the extension as requested. So if the City Commission decides to not approve the extension as requested, the developers would have up until February 14th, 2026 to finish milestone 4. For every month that they are late, there may be a 2.5% reduction in the total amount of eligible expenses that can be reimbursed to the developer through RHID funds, meaning that if the developers took up to December 14th, 2026, which would be 10 extra months, that there could potentially be a 25% decrease in the eligible funds that could be reimbursed. If the $6,840,687 that was estimated at the beginning of the project is used, this could amount to the allowed eligible expenses to be reimbursed to be decreased to $5,130,515, or a $1,710,172 decrease. For the City Commission to decrease the amount, you would have to take action to make that determination, as the development agreement says may, that you can make that decision. It is your discretion. And then the cap of the eligible expenses would be met faster. Once they hit that new mark of potentially $5,130,515, the RHID would close, and then property taxes would continue as normal. if you have any questions for me, I am here. We also have Mr. Byquist here from Southview Estates if you have any questions for him.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Clem?
I have some questions. I'm not sure if they're for her or for the developer. Some of these have been sold to investors as well. Do you have a breakdown of?
I will let the developer speak to that question.
I'm sorry, before you, do we as a city have the ability to change the RHID guidelines, or is that a state power, or is that under our control?
Change in what way? I guess we're...
Or changing the dates, obligation, the timeline?
Yeah, well, that's within our purview to do that.
Yeah. All right. That was it. Thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Stan Byquist, representing Southview. Thank you for having me. I'll try and give you a little synopsis of what's happened in the past several years. When we started this project, a $200,000 loan payment was $950 a month. That has now escalated to $1,330 a month, almost 40% increase. Now that's all due to interest rate. Our prices haven't changed. We've met the price line there. When we started, we fought supply chain issues, obviously high interest rates. We've asked for more time, obviously, but not to raise our prices. To answer Mr. Davis's question, 9 of the townhomes were sold to investors, around 35% approximately, and that has helped a lot, helped move the product. Currently, in the past few weeks, the market has seen some life, because all winter, to be quite honest, it was pretty dead. We currently have 5 single-family houses under contract. We have 5 more on Paradise ready. We're putting in sidewalks and driveways. That's kind of the last thing almost. We have 4 townhomes that are ready to sell. And we have 10 more townhomes dried in, framed up, dried in. And then we have 7 houses that are dried in on Harbor Court. And those are a newer floor plan for us. And we are market driven. And we saw when the market wanted 2-car garages. So those 7 units are all 2-car garages. Price-wise, we've held our price line. Oh, excuse me, let me back up first. We will be putting in 6 more foundations, 4 more this week, and hopefully 2 more next week if the plumbers make it. And that finishes all foundations for the whole project. And so then it's just going up in the air. Hopefully next week also, TNR Dirt will be back and finish the last street to the north, which is Fountain. That's the only segment that's not in. Currently our price schedule is $179 for townhomes, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, $189 for 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Single-family homes or single-car garage are $214, and the double-car garage are $225, $225,000, which are all under or on the scheduled price range. And with that, I'll try and answer any other questions.
Thank you. Any
You
questions
said,
for?
you said you had one more street to put in.
Yeah, it's a fountain to the very north that runs east and west, right next to Schilling there.
So is all the utilities already in place?
Oh, yes, good question. All utilities have been in place for quite some time. We've been waiting on the final concrete, streets, and then to finalize the houses, driveways, and sidewalks. And, of course, interior, but.
Right.
Two somewhat related questions. Other than, I think even before the rates went up, the sales were a little slow. Have you uncovered any other reasons as to why you just haven't been moving, which would then lead to the question, why would you expect them to go in the second and third quarter next year?
Why were they slow a little before the rates went up? Is that your question?
Yeah, because it seems as though initially the sales were rather slow there.
They were rather slow. I'd be honest, I don't have an answer for that. I mean, the biggest factor has been the borrowing power of the customer in this price range.
Okay. So what would change in the second and third quarter next year? There was a reference in the sheet here that you expect.
We don't have the crystal ball, but we see things coming around. And with the sales that have come about the last month with spring, we just feel that the tide is starting to turn. I mean, obviously, if you look at the numbers on the market, there are considerable higher numbers now than when we started of used product out there. But this is all new product, all new warranties in a new East Salina area, and we just believe, and our realtors believe, that the momentum has started. And now that you drive down the streets, and when a home is finished, you see the sod in, and you see fences, and you see planters on porches, and you see, lawn furniture out there and fenced backyards, and it looks more like a developed neighborhood than it did when we first started. I mean, it was out in the middle of nowhere, kind of bare ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably tough being the first residents.
Well, I'm sure it was for some of the few residents, but I'll have to say, and I don't have the exact number that have sold, we've only seen one turnover, one resale. The others have stayed put and are happy or improving their properties. Like I say, privacy fences and decks and lawn furniture and front yard planters and all sorts of things, shrubbery, trees, etc.
Now, the residents with the MIH, they don't pay special assessments, do they?
To my knowledge, that is correct. Yeah, to my knowledge, that was all taken care of under the MIH grant.
So that is a good deal for new product, new construction.
Mm-hmm.
There are no special assessments in the district. It's all covered by the RHID. So all the infrastructure is covered by RHID. Nobody's paying special assessments in that addition.
Okay, thank you for your correction. I wasn't positive.
That can sure make a difference in our house payment.
I mean, that can make a big difference in a home payment, a monthly home payment. But I honestly feel that fact has not gotten out there yet. I mean, it should be out there when they go through the bank lending and all that, but sometimes it doesn't seem to be pointed out.
We've, I guess, made several adjustments to the project. It's not the first project to have adjustments. but the monthly reduction for failure to comply has always been there in the agreement. And, basically the agreement says you can take as long as you want to complete it, just that there is a financial penalty.
That's the way I understand it.
And, if that timetable was good when this was signed, I'm just wondering why we should not still hold you to it, or at least exercise our right to say we may enforce it rather than will. At least I have a sense of kind of wanting to get this done. I'm sure you as the developer want to get it done.
We would like to get it done.
Right. But if that would increase the pressure to get it done, I guess I'd like to keep some flexibility on our end.
I can understand what you're saying. That is up to the commission. But we'd like to see it done. We thought we'd be done, finished, and have a few homes yet to sell now. But the market hadn't worked that way.
Well, and as you indicated, I think things are going to be looking up, and there's a lot of things coming in to Salina that we heard about earlier.
I asked if we were to exercise our right, may exercise this penalty. At what point along the timeline would that discussion reasonably come up?
Well, I
just
suppose,
from your experience,
any time before, February 14th of 2026 is kind of, that's the deadline, and if that's the time frame that would cause us to have to take action to, go in and do that. So I don't know if there's do you know, Lauren, if there's a timeline laid out in the agreement by which we would have to?
Commissioners, Lauren Driscoll, Director of Community and Development Services. The DA does specifically identify under that table that the developer may ask within 12 months of that deadline for an extension for you to entertain. It also identifies that the commission, may act, as Ms. Clem pointed out, on those additional fees and penalties. You would need to do it once they have not been able to make the deadline. So we couldn't do it, let's say, at the end of this year, because they wouldn't have passed the deadline until February 14th of 2026. So it would be once they haven't been able to make that deadline, at that next following city commission meeting, we would bring forward a resolution stating that they haven't, and these are the financial penalties that you're choosing to act on.
So there's no real pressure for us to make a decision today. I mean, we could make the same decision anytime up until, I forgot the date, but February 13th or 14th next year.
That is correct about
speaking,
the financial penalty, though it does state that the developer should and recommends that they ask in advance. I think it identifies 12 months in advance. So we're not exactly at 12 months, but they are seeking that request in advance.
Well, I appreciate the fact that they are looking ahead. They're being very honest. And the reality is what it is, that it's taken time.
Yeah, the lens I choose to look through this is it's a collaboration, and a lot of factors in the housing market since this project started. The cost of materials, labor, et cetera. The interest rates went up. I mean, a lot of factors that really kind of put them at a disadvantage. And at the end of the day, what we want is housing for a workforce, and that's the end game. And kind of taking on this punitive or quasi-adversarial perspective, and I understand it's in the agreement, but a lot of things have happened, and to me it just seems like it's not an unreasonable request, and I don't see what harm it would be for us to accommodate it. I mean, again, it's a collaboration, and we want housing, and that's the end of it, in my mind. But
what's the downside to extending it? It's just we have to wait longer for the housing, or there's no financial burden to the city or anything, is there?
Well, I mean, if we did carry through with how the agreements lined out and they did not meet the completion deadline, then we would start to collect property taxes on that property that would go back towards general fund or other items at an earlier time. So there would still be some funds that would go towards the infrastructure, but anything up to the point where we hit that whatever 2.5% per month is, that would come back to us. So it would have the effect of having money come back to the city at an earlier time.
But we wouldn't see that probably, I'm just throwing out a number, 17, 18, 20 years?
Could be, yeah.
Right. Okay.
But as far as having to wait longer for the housing, I mean, didn't the market kind of dictate if that, if there's a demand on that anyway? So I don't see a problem with extending it.
And I like the idea of them not having 30 houses on the market at the same time. I think that's good business.
It's a really good point. You can oversaturate that market segment. And I mean, at some point down the road, we're going to want to do business or collaborate with other developers. And, to me, this is just one more step towards being easy to work with. And at least, I mean, it'd be one thing if the market was, still the 2-3% interest rates and we didn't have the horrible inflation that we had over the last couple of years. It would be a different conversation in my mind. But there's kind of a human component to this. I mean, I know it's a private entity and a government entity, but there's still people behind those entities, and some things have happened, and it seems reasonable to me to accommodate. That's I'll leave it at that.
I guess is there any way to predict something like this in the future, just as far as the amount of housing we have in a certain segment? I guess our housing plan would not have, it would have said pedal to the metal and just build what you can. And
yeah, I don't know that there's a way to predict this type. I mean, and that's kind of why the agreement has a clause in there, or there's an asterisk in this section that says that the developer will come back if they need more time and make a request. So there is some. It is a little bit gray, I guess.
I would add, too, that the housing plan does identify this segment, and we're going to be building houses in this segment for another 10 years. But what the housing plan can't identify is within 6 months how many are going to sell. It looks at a bigger window and says, well, within 5 years, you're likely going to go through this amount of housing stock. But when we start breaking it into smaller increments, 1 month, 12 months, trying to get that exact number is a little bit difficult. I think what the developer is stating at this time is, they can produce the housing. They just need more time in order to produce it. So to Commissioner Ivey's question about does that stifle the housing or make them hurry it up, I don't think so. I mean, they still have an obligation to produce them all under the development agreement. The question is, can they produce them and get them sold in the time that's identified, or is a longer amount of time needed? So.
Thank you.
Can I ask the developer just, and it probably doesn't affect the decision on this, but do you save money not doing the inside now as opposed to, waiting, I guess, 3 to 6 months when
obviously we do, because
you don't spend it now.
We have a bank loan for all these funds. But I might add one thing. Our intent is to have all houses, all buildings out there dried in no later than September. So then it determines what sells and what doesn't. And we will be able to pick and choose, okay, we need to go finish this townhome or a couple of them off, or we need to go for a single family.
How long does it take to finish it at that point? Just roughly.
Oh, boy. Then, you know, from...
I'm not a builder. Anything you tell me, I
know.
believe. So,
if you have one out there that's all dried in, doesn't have sheetrock yet, and we get on it, it can be done in under 2 months.
Oh, okay.
But when I say completed in September, I mean the streets will be in, the sidewalks will be in, the driveways will be in. So it's just a matter of going into the interiors.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions about anything else, or? Okay. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
Ben Winhill, Salina. Anytime you get grant money, no matter what it's for, it never comes with a crystal ball. So you sign on a dotted line, they sign on a dotted line. That's how you get the money. Now, the grant money goes into the developer's pocket, basically, because it goes to his bottom line. So if his bottom line is fatter, it goes in, more money goes into his pocket. You've already changed this development many times. You changed the timeline once. You changed the factor that all of the townhomes could go to investors. And now you're changing the timeline again, all to appease the developer. I don't understand why you want to keep doing this when the rules are in place for the grants from the beginning. Yes, there is the timeline factor, but nothing comes with a crystal ball. These guys should have known this when they started this project, that this was going to happen and that they're going to have to sit on them or whatever. Now, the question was asked, why aren't these properties selling? They're in the price range that Salina needs to have, and they're not selling. And they keep after, it's excuse after excuse after excuse, the interest rates, whatever, you know, everything. And it's like, as being in the trades for 45 years, and from what I've heard on the streets about this development so far, I can give you the reason why these places aren't selling. But I'm not going to, because I'm going to piss off a lot of people.
Any other member of the public wish to comment on this item? I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 25-8287, resolution of amendment for the Southview Estates LLC RHID development agreement.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve. Well, it's one of those days. Thank you for your patience on that. So, motion and second for resolution number 25-8287, amending the Southview Estates LLC development agreement. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
3-1. And we can bring Commissioner Hoppick back in. On to other business.
Yes, our previous discussion about the agreement with Government Professional Solutions, Holly, our assistant, was monitoring the meeting and sent an email. And I'm just now reading it. So I would like to check your availability for either Monday, March 31st or Monday, April 7th. I have offered these days to GPS as well. Let me know your availability. Anyone have any opinions? April 7th is out for me.
I have to check my calendar.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Well, I guess that means we should all see if March 31st
31st
works.
works, yeah. Okay.
Shorten the decision tree.
I can make March 31st work. Move some things around.
That'd work for me.
Okay, we got 3 for
Guess
March
it's
31st.
in your and my court. We'll get with Holly in the morning, so.
I gotta look at my schedule.
I did have one thing, and I talked to Mr. Wood about this. It seems like this last winter's really been hard on our streets. I've noticed more potholes around than usual, and I just want to offer up the if we need to add to our street budget, or if we need to look at assigning additional personnel to fixing some of the areas, I'd suggest we do that, because it just between the snow plows and this extra cold weather we had, it seems like the streets have taken a little bit of a beating this year.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily need to do that, but I'll have Jim come up if you want to.
While he's coming, I told the city manager, we were over to Annex. My granddaughter's here for her spring break from Milwaukee. And we were riding around town Saturday night, and she looked at me, she said, "Wow, your streets are smooth." And I said, "What?" "Your streets are so smooth. Milwaukee is just bumpy, pothole, this and that." So we're better than at least one other city, but and probably several others. But for a 15-year-old to notice it, I said, "Wow, I got to let streets know that at least the streets we were riding on were good." I mean, there are some bumpy ones out there.
And I guess I know there's been some curb damage, from plows, and that kind of stuff's going to happen. Is there a number that individuals could contact if they have an issue? I'm guessing, can you tell them what department or where they should reach out?
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, Jim Toich, Director of Public Works. So first of all, your observations we completely agree with. This winter has been extraordinarily hard on a lot of different pavement in the city. You approved a change order to one of the contracts earlier in this meeting because a 390-foot section of pavement just completely gave out. A couple of things. Street crews have been working the last several weeks. We are trying to balance pothole patching with utility patches, which has also seemed to be on the increase. We will continue to work that. We expect that to go several more weeks before we've probably addressed every pothole. If citizens or anyone would like to contact General Services, 785-309-5750, they can do so, and we will get it added to the list, and we'll get a crew out there to address the pothole. A number of repairs, we are using cold patch so that we can clear as many of these as possible, and then as time and schedules allow, we will come back with hot mix when we can. But we wanted to get something in as many holes as we can. I think I have spoken to a number of directors, other public works directors. I've spoke to engineers. I've spoke to some pavement companies. It seems to be that we had an unusual freeze-thaw situation with our weather this winter that has likely contributed to that pavement breaking out. To the best of everyone's ability to try to figure it out, that's what the consensus in the industry has been, that the extended period of cold, it stayed colder a lot longer than normal, and then fluctuations in temperature with water and then desiccation of that pavement just drying out, it just caused a lot more damage than what we're used to seeing. But we continue to work on it.
And I know we can patch the asphalt. How do we handle, because I noticed there's some some streets that are concrete that, you know, I know we have a budget set aside for, what do we call it, minor concrete repair. Do we do that, or do we have to sub that out? How do we do that?
The answer is it depends. A lot of it has to do with the majority of the work that General Services does is addressing utility patches, curb and gutter repairs, and to some degree, pavement panel repair or replacement. We will temporarily patch it with an asphalt product when time and schedules allow. They will either the General Services crew, or we would have to contract it, but we would then cut out that concrete and put it back as concrete. Ultimately, that's the goal.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing that I did not address is, at least right now, we do not foresee any issue with the budget. We're managing it, and the crews believe that they can handle what's going on without affecting the budget in any way.
I'd like to follow up on this. A few months ago, I discussed with you and city manager about making improvements in the methods of pothole patching. And I've kind of followed up, and because I know we haven't seen the worst of the potholes yet. For the city to invest in some equipment to make this more efficient and safe. And my initial, where I got this idea was the Christmas parade, seeing Bergkamp's massive machine. And I don't know that we need to spend that kind of money, but I think investing at least in what they call a hot box, where the hot mix goes in and it keeps it hot, and the guys just shovel there at waist level rather than reaching up in the dump truck. I can't imagine the wear and tear on the body doing that all day long and then pounding that asphalt in. So I think we really need to consider making improvements there, and I believe that I suggested to you at that time we make this a greenbelt project. Let the people doing the work figure out a better, safer, efficient way to do it.
I can only say I concur and would love to see the city work on a greenbelt project in that direction. I can tell you that the superintendent and the foreman and the crews would not object to having additional equipment to help them with that issue.
So when's your last day, Jim?
This Friday, sir.
Seriously?
Well, thank you for your service to the city.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hate to throw this last question on you now. Well, you won't have to worry about solving it. But I think it was about 3 years ago, a lot of streets were paved, just, another layer was put on the top, like East Crawford, by Marymount. If you're coming onto that street, there's about an inch to an inch and a quarter, inch and a half uphill bump that you have to go over. And Mr. Sprague had said they were going to come by and smooth down the ones like coming out of Genesis. It's a big drop and probably not good for the alignment. But do we have any contracts? It would not be a wintertime priority, obviously, but is there a way to report those, to get those smoothed out? Because they're really hard, but you have to consciously slow down to go up onto that street.
I would say absolutely. What would report it the same way to any of the public works, either the 309-5750 at General Services or 5725 with engineering, because there's a number of ways we can solve that. Some of them we have to literally cut out and replace. So it's a remove and replace kind of thing. Many of them we can simply grind down. Yeah. I will say that the new project engineer in engineering and former director of public works, very talented, knowledgeable individual, has been discussing that with Mr. Kowach, and I think that you'll see us looking to find ways to reduce the amount of lip that you see on entrances when we do that kind of pavement project. It is something that they are discussing. I know that for sure.
So if I use the word lip, that would
Yeah,
that would sound familiar to whoever's reading.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And congratulations on your.
Thank you very much.
time.
Yeah, and just from a staff perspective, I did want to get you to the podium, so that was a good. That was a Jim doesn't like recognition, but I will say I've worked with Jim for the last 6 years, and I know he's been with the city a lot longer than that, and it's been a pleasure working with you, and we really appreciate your service to the city of Salina. It's something we really needed, and you can tell when you drive around, Salina's a better place because of the work that Jim and his group has done. So thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Any other business? On the Citizens Forum, please keep your comments within the 3-minute guideline.
Ben Winholz, I'm going to take away from Jim's little happy party. I don't have the luxury of having Scott be able to put numbers up on the board for me, so you're going to have to bear with me, and anybody watching this may have to watch it a second time for what I'm about to say. Last week, 311 ran a story about the Kansas legislation in the process of elimination of the state's art commission at a tune of $1 million. All right, remember $1 million. That's an important figure. The Kansas population was 2,971,000 in 2024, and Salina's current population is 46,889, according to their website, or 1.58% of the state's total. Even though Salina is 1.58 of the state's, our art budget is $1,079,089 as of 2024, including the general fund withdrawal for the River Festival of $331,031. The Director of the Arts and Humanities has told me personally to my face that the middle of May withdrawal from the general fund is for the arts salaries and not the River Festival. Hence, their budget is $331,031 and $748,058, totaling the $1,079,000 figure that I just mentioned. So the wow factor in all of this, even though Salina is 1.5% in size of the state, our art budget is 7.9% higher than the whole state of Kansas. The what the heck is wrong with this picture factor is in all of this is that the city general fund has a withdrawal of $538,000 and climbing to keep a private piece of art off of a long-standing business building. That's 53.8% of the whole state of the Kansas art program. Bottom line is, how can the taxpayers of Salina afford a 7.9% more art budget than the whole state and a budget and a $53.8 million reason to keep a particular work of art out of the community? Go figure.
Norman Manuel, Salina. The good times is over. It's 2025. It's not 1950 anymore. People are leaving this country on their own. People are being removed from this country. You need to check your news. The population is going down in the whole country. Yes, it is. They're leaving. They don't like the government we got. Your substation has been shut down over in London for over several hours. You've got a security problem here with these substations. The one on 9th Street, the one behind the hospital, and the one down here in the north section. You can't protect them. They're going to hit these substations. It's easy. You can't protect them. Your drones, we can weaponize them. You can't stop terrorists. They're already here. About bird flu, it's all around the city. It's around the state. Wherever you got water standing, you're going to have flu problems. It's hitting all of us. It isn't just livestock. It's crossing over. So, fire insurance for the future. The whole country, the West Coast, they're canceling their fire insurance. You ain't going to get insurance for your building. State Farm is canceling their insurance out there. American Family is canceling their insurance. So, maybe the city needs an Elon Musk here.
Anyone else? Open to a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
We're adjourned.